Hey everybody, welcome back to Retro Depot. My name's Doug, and today we're going to be taking a look at how you can get a Commodore VIC-20 for just $8. Let's take a look at the bench. So this is a VIC-20 motherboard. You might be asking, why do I have a VIC-20 motherboard sitting in front of the camera? Well, long story short, I was watching a video that was produced by the 8-bit guy the other day, and he mentioned that he had bought a bunch of VIC-20 motherboards and some another Commodore computer keyboards. Anyways, short story is that he bought a bunch of these from a radio surplus company, and he managed to get a bunch of them working, and he was selling them on his website. So I thought to myself, well, that might be worth going at. So I went to his website, and he was selling them for $30 a piece. And he had mentioned in the video that he bought them for about $4 a piece. So knowing that, he was basically making 1,000% profit on them, I decided, well, I'll just check to see if that radio supply company has any more, because I can do the work and get them up and going. If there is something that's wrong with them, that's not a big deal. So I went to the website for the radio surplus company, and sure enough, they did still have them in stock. And if you bought 5 or more, which I think 5 was the minimum order, you would get, you'd get them for $4 a piece. So having said that, here it is, a VIC-20 for $4. Now, having said that, then you have to calculate in the shipping, and they do a kind of a weird way of doing shipping. They don't, say it's going to cost X amount of dollars. They just go ahead and tell you, hey, we're going to do a separate charge to your card for the shipping. Once we ship it, it'll be for the actual cost. A couple days later, they contacted me and said, hey, it's going to be, I think, $19.50 or something along those lines to ship the 5 motherboards that I bought. So for a grand total of $40, I ended up getting 5 Commodore VIC-20 motherboards. Now, as we can see, they're in pretty good condition. There is a little bit of wear on the card edge, nothing significant, but there is a little bit of wear. Other than that, all the metal looks good. Some of the motherboards had a little bit of tarnish on, for example, this, or the back plate here, or the cap for the video circuitry. But for the most part, it was in pretty good shape. If we take a look over on this side, we see, that the traces are all real good. You can really get in there and see. I'll try to zoom the video camera in just a little bit to where we can take a closer look. So, everything looks good. I think this is a newer motherboard, if I'm not mistaken. It's got the Commodore 64 style power jack, which I think that's a pretty good indicator that it's one of the newer ones. And whenever you purchase these, they tell you that this is my cat feeder going off, I apologize. But whenever you purchase these, they tell you that some worked, some didn't. So you don't know what you're getting. But I'm going to give you my experience right now. I bought 5 of these motherboards, and of the 5 motherboards that I purchased, a total of 4 of them worked. Now, whenever I say 4 of them worked, that means that I was able to get video and, on the prompt. I don't have any keyboards for these. With this, you're just getting the motherboard. Apparently they did have some Commodore keyboards, but they were for the Commodore 16 or something along those lines, I think. And they're just not pin compatible. And of course, the 8-bit guy, he did a short article about how you could get them to potentially be mostly compatible, but they're not 100% compatible. So you know, it's one of those things. I'm not going to buy one of those keyboards if I'm just going to have to hack it together. What I'll probably end up doing is 3D printing a keyboard, and then I'll just wire it up by hand. But whenever I first bought this, you know, it's been years since I've, you know, used a Commodore machine. I had a Commodore 64 growing up, and unfortunately I haven't had one since then, so I don't have any power supplies, I don't have any video cables or anything like that, so I actually had to make my own. Made a, you know, set of video cables, just used RCA plugs, and, you know, got a DIN 5 connector for the video, which is this connector here. And then I actually had to create my own power supply. So what I did was I created basically an adapter. And what it allows me to do, let's see, VIC-20. What it allows me to do is plug in a regular 12 volt supply, and then I have the DIN 7 for the power plug on the Commodore VIC-20. Now all this is two basically switching converters that one of them converts the voltage down to 5 volts, and then the other one converts it to 9. Now the VIC-20 actually requires a 9 volt AC. However, upon looking at the schematic, which I actually have here, if we take a look at the power supply area of the schematic, what we see is that 9 volt AC comes in on pin 7 and pin 6, and it goes through basically a double choke, which if you look at it, it actually appears, where is it? Oh, it actually appears to be a what's the word? A transformer. It's not a transformer. It's not a transformer at all. What it actually is it's a kind of a two-sided choke. It has some filter caps there, and then it has 2 points that break off, and they come down here to the user port, where they supply 9 volt. Here we go. It comes down here to the user port, where it supplies 9 volt AC out to the user port for the interfaces. Now if we go back up to the power supply portion of it, it goes through a bridge rectifier, a little bit more decoupling there, and then it comes through a I'm wanting to say this is some type of charge circuit to basically regulate current, possibly. I think that's essentially what this is supposed to be here. And of course it's partially governed by, and it might actually be for the cassette interface. Yeah, it looks like this is something to drive the cassette motor, and that's pretty much the only thing it's being used for. You can see it comes here, so it's pretty much being used for the cassette motor, and that's about it. That's the only thing that I'm finding that's actually using the 9 volt, and at this point it would be DC because it's already gone through the bridge rectifier. And of course, if we take a look at the motherboard itself, get this out of the way, it seems like it's mostly over here. This capacitor here is 9 volts, and then of course it has some 9 volt current up here on the cassette port. But that's essentially it. There's not really a whole lot going on. So having said that, with the data I have, it's mostly using 5 volt with the exception of the cassette port. So having said that, and I believe that's a cassette port there. It may be this here. I'm not certain. What is that? P2? Yeah, P2. It should be. No, P2 is the card edge here. Like I said, it's been years since I played with a Commodore, so. But anyhow, you know, I checked everything out, and of course it looked like it was going to work fine. I didn't see anything. I tested, you know, resistance between power and ground. I didn't have any problems, and so I ended up coming up with this little converter box here, and it actually works pretty well. So that gets me back to testing the boards. Like I said, some of them work, some of them don't. Out of the 5 boards that I ordered, 3.5 of them work. Why 3.5, do you say? Well, that doesn't seem like a very round number, does it? Well, the short and skinny of it is I had 3 of the motherboards that booted up fine. Showed a picture on the television, with composite video. No problems whatsoever. Of course, I don't have a keyboard to test functionality and make sure that the 2 PIA chips are working. But for the most part, it seemed like it was going okay. It discovered the memory. There wasn't any memory issues or anything. So, having said that, the first 3 worked fine. 1, it turned on. It displayed the black screen, and then it displayed a picture. And then after the the initial ready screen, it sat there for about 3 to 5 seconds, and then it started losing sync. And what I mean by that is I started to get vertical, image corruption, and eventually it got bad enough to where it just lost sync altogether, so that the screen was just lost. This is on a modern digital TV. I suppose on an analog you would still see some type of picture, but it didn't show anything. So at that point, I know that we have a problem with the video circuitry. Other than that, it looks like it works. Now, I tried it again about 15 minutes later, and it lasted a little bit longer, and by a little bit longer, I mean it lasted probably 7 to 10 seconds before it started doing that screen flicker, and then I just turned it off. I tried it again about an hour after that, and it seemed stable. It was able to run without losing its picture for about 5 minutes. Now, at that time, I'd actually taken the can off, and I'd actually played with the 2 trim pots on the inside of the video circuitry can here, and those are for, I believe, white and black, brightness and darkness. So I played with those a little bit, and it seemed to actually work okay. So I don't know. I'm hoping maybe it just was a little bit out of spec and needed to be tuned just a little bit, and it's good. But if not, I'll toy with it. But as it sits right now, that motherboard also appears to be working just fine. So that means I have one board that is still not working. Now that board, I'm going to take this and move it out of the way. That board is this board here. Now this board here, I haven't really done a lot of diagnostic testing on it at this point, so I haven't really delved too far into it. But, the other board, I'll get into that in a second. There was another problem with another board, but it was super simple to fix. So, this board here is the board that's not working. Everything checks out, power and ground, 9 volt, and everything seems to be good. I'm getting a little bit of activity on the read and write lines, the read-write line and the clock signal, so I know the CPU is doing a little bit of something. I don't know if the ROM chips are bad at this point because my logic analyzer only has 8 lines, so I can't really test for data and addresses to see exactly what it's doing. I'm just using a cheap USB logic analyzer. I have a nice digital Tektronix logic analyzer, but unfortunately I don't have any pods at the moment. I need to get some pods. So I've been unable to diagnose this board, but I have taken the can lid off. I've looked at everything. It seems like it's actually trimmed down. It seems like there's not as much circuitry in this can as there are the other cans, and I don't know if that's normal or not, but it's definitely got what appears to be an older 6560. So it could be an issue with that. I'm uncertain. But the last board that I want to talk about is not this board here. It's one of the ones that actually worked. Whenever I first plugged it in, I wasn't getting any 5-volt voltage. So at that point, I shut the power off and I started checking everything. And what I discovered is that this switch right here, the power switch, the 9-volt side, whenever you turned it on, was actually making the connection, but the 5-volt side was not. And on the front edge of the metal right here, there was a little bit of corrosion. And what I mean by a little bit of corrosion is it had actually turned green. It was the only part of the board that was actually corroded. So I'm willing to bet, and of course if you know anything about the the circuitry of the VIC-20, this side here is actually the 5-volt side. This side over here is the 9-volt side. So it was in fact the side that was not turning on. So having said that, it was real simple. I took the back shield off like I've done with this board here, and I actually went to the back side. I soldered on a connection to both sides of that, brought it out the front, and brought it up to about right here with a little bit of slack. Put the back plate back on, plugged it back in, powered it on, nothing, flipped the switch for 5-volt, and it works fine. At that point I was able to get video. So that's the reason why I say I had a small problem with one other board, but that was super simple to fix. And if this board is unable to get repaired, what I may actually do is use this as a parts board. I may end up transplanting this switch from this computer, because I've tested this and this works on this. I thought that might be the problem with this one as well, but it's not. So I may end up transplanting this over to that one, and then at that point I've got some other components to make do if I end up having to make any other repairs in the future. So that's a board. Like I said, it's fairradio.com that sells these. They are selling them for $4 a board. You need to check it out if you haven't already done it. It is a pretty neat little thing that they're doing with these old motherboards. Don't ask me where they got them. I don't know if it was some type of government auction, or if maybe they just came upon a lot of refurbished motherboards for the VIC-20. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I'm sure it was probably some old radio repair shop that had a bunch of these from back in the ham radio days or something like that. I think people probably used to use a lot of the Commodores with the ham radios for one reason or another. It seems to me like radio guys have always been interested in 8-bit computers. So it's just an idea. I don't know if that's actually where they came from or not. At this point I'm just shooting some banter. So whatever though, if you want a cheap VIC-20, you don't mind putting together your own keyboard, and you don't mind building your own case for it, or if you just need a motherboard for parts, or maybe your 6560 chip has gone out and you need a replacement. Those 6560 chips are going for about, I don't know, $30 right now. You can get a whole motherboard for $8. Now, it's not guaranteed to work, but in the case of mine, 4 out of 5 is not bad. I'll take 4 out of 5. Okay guys, I hope you liked the video. If you have anything to comment or share about this project, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Like if you like the video, always subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and obviously check out my website, retrodepot.net. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to Nick Brock from the Netherlands. That guy actually traced down a bug that I had in my software for the G80S computer and also in Tiny Basic that was preventing certain uses of the input function and the print function. So big shout out to that guy. He helped me out a lot. I've got the new code posted on the website with the changes that he suggested, and it should help you out a lot. So that's it for today. If you have any questions, feel free to either leave a comment below or to shoot me an email. I'm always happy to take emails from people who like my videos or are interested in my projects, and we'll see you on Thursday.